What is your name?
I was thinking.
Okay, back.
Tony. All right. I believe we are live.
Nobody opened the door yet.
I would like to call to order the November 5th, 2020 Columbia Borough Council work session. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilperson Zink.
Here.
Councilperson Kaufman.
Here.
Councilperson Williams.
Here.
Councilperson Fitzgerald.
She stepped out.
She stepped out a second.
Councilperson Stevens.
Here.
Councilperson Whitner.
Here.
Councilperson Burgard.
Here.
Mayor Lutz.
Here.
Councilperson Fitzgerald.
Here. Shoot. All right. There's no one here from the ministerium or otherwise. So please rise for a moment of silent reflection. And Mayor, would you like to lead us in a pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Does anyone have anything that they want to add, delete, or reorganize on the agenda? I do not have anything. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
And a second. I have a motion by Councilperson Williams, second by Councilperson Kaufman to approve the agenda as published. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? We're good. All right, Mayor Lutz, you have a proclamation for us.
Yes, I do. I have a proclamation to read designating Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Month and Caregivers Month. And it reads, whereas Alzheimer's is an incurable and fatal brain disease that causes memory loss, disorientation, decreased judgment, and difficulty speaking. And whereas more than 5 million Americans are now living with Alzheimer's disease, 270,000 people in Pennsylvania alone, and 673,000 caregivers who provide unpaid care at home valued at upwards of $9 billion. And whereas the care provided by family caregivers helps offset the impact on our community budgets at a time when we can ill afford the rising cost of health care. And whereas with early detection and diagnosis, individuals and families can gain access to treatment, medications, enroll in critical research trials, fully participate in planning for the future, and receive help and support from Alzheimer's Association of Pennsylvania's Lancaster Regional Office. And whereas we need more individuals and families to know they can get help at no cost from the Alzheimer's Association, and that there is hope on the horizon with advancements in research. So now, therefore, I, Leo Lutz, Mayor of the Borough of Columbia, Pennsylvania, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the laws of the Borough of Columbia, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, do hereby proclaim the month of November 2020 as Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Month and Caregivers Month. And you know, just a side note on this. We all know this is a terrible disease. Probably none of us sitting here have not been affected one way or the other through family members or friends. I had some personal, some of my grandparents went through it. It's horrible. I feel as though sometimes, I feel as though people with Alzheimer's are kind of like locked in their body. It's like, I feel they're aware, but they can't communicate. That's the way I feel. Now, I don't know if that's true or not because I don't think we have that ability to pick their brain, But that's just the feeling I get when I look into someone with Alzheimer's eyes. So, it's terrible. We should do what we can. And the strain on families caring for folks with Alzheimer's, many times you see that because of the care that's needed, it really affects the family and it helps pull down some of those family members' health also. So hopefully someday we will find a cure for this disease. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam President.
I think we could add dementia to that as well.
Yes, to me, I don't know the difference, but to me they go hand in hand.
Right, yeah, that's important.
Yes.
Yep. All right, citizen comments, and there are no citizens. So now we're gonna move into the working section. The first item we have is discussion on the ordinance to amend sections 1, 19, and 20 of the Code of Ordinances. You all see this in here. I'll let Mark take over and tell us why this is important and what we're doing here.
Absolutely. So this ordinance is twofold. The first issue is about a month and a half ago, the code department was over at the magistrate for a hearing, and a young attorney had read in detail our code, and this person was up for a $500 citation for failure to comply with the requirements. And they found that in 119, the language was written such that with the fees all in there, there was either a mistake or someone didn't write the code carefully. The way the language is written is we can only charge a $25 ticket on those. We can't charge the $500 citations.
What was the citation for?
If you get a quick ticket and you don't comply with everything, we can then convert it up to a $500 citation.
Thank you.
So we can't issue those citations as $500 citations, which is more than just those quick tickets. There's other issues that go immediately to a $500 citation. So Paul and I met with Evan and worked on the language of this section that needs to be cleaned up. So that's part of it. At the bottom of this, you will see also that this is the same code section that deals with appeals. So I have put in here now that the Code Compliance Appeals Board, so by this change in ordinance, we'll be able to establish that appeals board, and that'll set us up for that anyone who wants to have an appeal can come to the board and we'll have that established, okay? The third thing that we're doing in this, and this is something that we're going to keep doing for a long period of time now, and that is to get all fees out of the ordinance. You never want to put fees in here, and when I actually read that section, you see it in the old section E, it actually says that these fees in a code can be amended every now and then by resolution, but you can't amend a code by resolution. So the actual language in here is illegal. You can only amend an ordinance by an ordinance, but you can amend a fee schedule by resolution.
Should we be removing that in what is now section D then, where it says, and which may be amended from time to time by resolution of?
No, because that then refers to the adopted fee schedule, not the section below.
Okay, I'm sorry,
That's right.
it's been a long week.
Yes. Do we have an election this year? So that's what's in there. So we're taking all of these fees and things out. We're going to be transferring them all over to the fee schedule. So the fee schedule is going to be expanded greatly when we bring it forward. We were going to try to get the fee schedule together soon, but we're so close to January, we re-adopt a new one for the 2021. We'll just have all these amendments in the fee schedule, and we'll adopt it in January at our first meeting in January. So then we can just do it then and clean it all up together. So that's what this ordinance is. There may be a couple other sections we have to add in as we're going through all the appeals, because it's spread out throughout the code. But that's what we're doing. Again, cleaning up the language so that we don't get caught up on that $500 quick ticket or citation fee. Establishing the appeals board rather than making the manager or designee the appeal agent. And then all of the fees, including the appeal fees, will be in the new fee schedule coming for in January. Any questions on this one?
I have a few comments.
All right.
On the opening statement on page 3 of the packet, line 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, the word adopted is in there at the typo. I think it's supposed to say adopted.
Oh, there's another typo too.
Where are you?
The opening,
On the first page?
the opening statement.
Yeah, where it says an
Adopted.
ordinance
Got
of,
it. All right.
you got it?
Yep.
And section 1, words that are stuck through, should be struck.
Struck through. All right, all right. You guys are good. That's why you're looking at it. Thank you.
I like the fact that you extended the time to comply from 15 to 30 days.
Yes,
I think
I was
it's
gonna say that too.
generous.
I was very happy to see that.
I think we need to look at maybe parking tickets as well. There's street sweeping tickets, we got 7 days at some point. Section 120 was A, where it talks about a penalty for not paying at all. I know that there are numbers and fine fees noted in that, but nowhere else in the rest of the ordinance is there any note of if you fail to comply, there is some kind of consequence. I was curious to know why that entire item, or what would you call that, article, item, statement?
Subsection,
letter,
yeah.
was removed, maybe just not rephrased. It reads, if the person in receipt of a $25
Yeah.
violation ticket does not pay the fine or request a hearing within 15 days, that person will be subject to another fine for days 6 through 30. Failure of the person to make payment within 30 days shall make the person subject to a citation of the fines indicated in the relevant section of the code in Borough Colonia. So there's absolutely a statement being said there that if you don't comply, you don't pay the code, there's a penalty, or pay the fine, there's a penalty. That's not repeated anywhere else.
But the intent of that is, and so it's kind of redundant language in the sense that if you look at B, talks about, a person has to abate the ticket. If not, we can go into abatement. C, former D, now C, if the borough corrects the violation, in all instances abate the violation. So all of that language, and even down in, is it? In H, now G, this is the appeal section. So we just felt like it's redundant language.
Okay.
I mean, we can
I wasn't
look at
picking
it,
all that
but
up out of all those different places, but if you're saying it's there, I
yeah,
trust you.
yeah.
Yeah, the new section E, in the instance where the borough has abated the violation and the charged party fails to pay the abatement costs set forth in a written notice, the borough may include such costs in any citation issues.
Okay. Got it.
And then a separate offense under this article shall occur for each and every
There you go.
day
Yeah, it's-
Yeah.
such violation continues.
It is redundant.
Yep,
Yeah.
and shall be subject to the penalty imposed by this section, so.
Thanks, Evan.
mhm. So, does anyone else have any other questions on that, or comments or concerns that need made before we would vote on this next week,
Well, I'm gonna try to get it on,
Tuesday?
if you're good, I'll get it on Tuesday for us to authorize the attorney to advertise it, and then we'll actually have it on the agenda for the 24th. So
Okay.
if in the meantime you see anything else, we still have up until we prepare the agenda for the 24th to make any corrections to it.
Okay.
I do have one question. Why wouldn't we state the fee schedule at the end of the year for the following year? And also put language in there, the council would update the fee schedule
Annually,
in
whatever.
December.
I don't like tying the council to a date to adopt the fee schedule, as long as we update on a regular basis. I mean, we can.
We've changed fees in July already this year. We've changed fees.
Right.
So, I mean, to me.
But to have it in a code, you have to do it in December, and if for some reason you don't do it, you adopt it in January, someone could challenge that fee schedule, saying it wasn't adopted per your code.
I understand that.
And there's a new council next, there's an election next year, so it'll be a different count, different makeup.
Well, it's still gonna be a fee schedule every year.
Right,
Yeah, but don't you want the new council to,
They will.
they will.
Okay, I think the fee schedule should be set prior to
The start of the year.
January 1st.
Yeah, we could aim to do it in the last meeting, and I don't know if you have an opinion on that at all.
Let's get the input, we can get that very quickly. Sure. Get the numbers and the information.
I see what you're saying, you want it, if it's the new year, you want it to start January 1st, not the 6th or whatever the first meeting is.
Right, right. And I don't know if we put a date on the fee schedule, say January 1st, 2000.
It's effective as of, we can do it that way, yeah. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so if you have any other questions on that, if you see anything else, let me know beforehand, and otherwise we'll get this on the agenda for next Tuesday to authorize advertising that.
All right, next, that was A, B, the budget discussion. I forget, were we having a separate budget meeting this month? That's my question.
Yes. We just put all this on here so that we can work through all of this stuff just in another workshop setting, and then we're gonna have on the 19th, we have our next full budget meeting that's scheduled for the public meeting. I just like, Kyle and I were talking about this, and we felt, hey, we have time in tonight's workshop to go through this. Let's just see if there's any other issues or questions on these, and then we'll deal everything with the adopted, or with the scheduled meeting on the 19th.
So the 19th is a budget meeting.
It's a Thursday, I
And,
believe.
At 7.
Yeah,
yeah.
that should have been on the calendar you guys
Yeah,
got
it's on
back.
the calendar.
We'll get it in
Yeah.
here in a while.
I'm gonna double check mine. Oh, no, I didn't have one there. I know, right?
It should be a quick one. We're gonna, I say that every meeting. Because tonight we're gonna look at, I'll get into it in a minute here, the general fund, bond capital, and liquid fuels. So that meeting on the 19th should, unless anything changes or questions, comments, things like that come up, should only be Fund 18. So-
And when are we set to vote to advertise?
If you're comfortable with the meeting on the 19th, with all four of the funds, I don't see why we couldn't do it then. We do have December 10th, I believe. It's usually that last meeting that you guys approve for us to advertise it, and we go through the motions to get all that done. Again, if everyone's happy with where the budgets are later this month, there's no reason we can't do it then too. It's completely up to you guys.
All right, well, I'm gonna let you take it away here.
Okay.
This is all you.
All right. So tonight we're going to review the most current and, of course, complete 2021 fund budgets. And they are the General Fund, Fund 1, this is proposal number 2. Bond Capital, Fund 30, proposal number 1. And Liquid Fuels, Fund 35, proposal number 2. So we'll start, of course, with the General Fund. So if everyone's at the, just so everyone's at the same page, the general fund, the table of contents, I believe, I don't know what page number that is in the overall package. Page number 7 in the overall Borough Council packet. So for the general fund, once again, Fund 1, this is going to be proposal number 2. We're going to look at the full proposal chart of accounts, the staffing schedule, also called the manning schedule, budgeted transfer from fund balance review, our fund balance usage, the fund balance projection, budgeted revenues by type, budgeted revenues by subtype, and on the other end, the budgeted expenditures by type and the budgeted expenditures by subtype, and lastly, the budgetary notices once again. So if we all turn to the next page. So what we're going to be looking at here tonight, again, budget proposal number 2. It is that yellow cell there with red bold font right next to that. That cell there, the column rather, is the budget proposal change. So what has changed from obviously budget proposal 1 to the current proposal number 2. Overall, you can see that we did have an increase of the transfer from fund balance, revenue account 01301,001, a slight increase of $6,172. Now, the vast majority of the changes in proposal number 2, again coming from number 1, are due to actuals, of 2020 actuals being updated. So obviously, as we have that information loaded in, here specifically October, then I'm able to apply those changes, that total amount, to the averages and the proposal for 2021. We did get in, mentionable updates, we did get in our total assessed value for the borough, $745,200. So that did thankfully give us a property tax increase for that revenue line item of $11,832. And of course, that came with a 5% the uncollectible for RET, $592 as well. But overall, it's a very good update.
Just to make sure I understand it right,
Sure.
what you're saying is the value, the taxable value of property within the borough has increased.
The net.
The net.
The increase has netted us with $11,832.
So property values are on the
Yes,
rise.
yes.
Yes.
And of course, coming into the budget year, or the budget prep rather, we were using 2020 numbers, and as the county releases that information, that's how we get it loaded in.
I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that
Absolutely.
property values are going up.
Sure, absolutely.
It's not a global like a reassessment is, but
No.
when a property does get reassessed individually, they're coming in higher each time.
Yes.
Seeing that.
Madam President, if you convert that, and I watch this every year, it wasn't too many years ago, I'll say within the past 5 years, the value, and I use it as the value of the community, would have made the value of a mill, okay, at $325.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you can see you're going up to $42,000. It's made significant jumps in the past 3 to 4 years. There for a while, we were hanging pretty stagnant at, at 325. And now it's moving. And you can see that if you look at the Sunday News every week and you look at the real estate transfers, you can't help but see that the value of Columbia and then some of the businesses starting to kick in really have made a difference. And that's a key thing for us to look at.
Yes.
That you keep driving up the value of a mill versus, your taxes. If you look at Manheim Township and West Hempfield, now the value of a mill is in the millions. And that's why they have 2, 3, 4 mil property taxes. But they gain more from a mill, where we don't gain that much. So that's key for us, and that's the number that will keep property taxes from rising in Columbia Borough.
Yes.
Thank you.
Kyle?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you be willing to explain the $426 million figure again? Is that all the properties in, what
All
is it?
the taxable, it's the assessed value of all the taxable properties.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you happen to know how many tax bills actually go out? Like,
I want to say around 3,200, but don't hold me to that. That's something to definitely pull out for that for 2020.
That's okay, I just-
And then as they come out for 2021, I can make a note to advise everybody of that. What's that? 3,193.
Give or take
You were
one or
pretty
two.
close.
Not bad.
Off by 7.
Not bad for a long week. Yes.
Was there an election this week?
Not yet.
We don't know.
The other mentionable update would be the Act 205 pension subsidy. So that's a state subsidy. We got those numbers in. Unfortunately, that went down. No control. We have no control over that, unfortunately. That went down $27,161. Of course, we have to account for that in our revenue. Again, that's a pretty substantial change. I want to make mention of that.
Did you say liquid fuels?
No, that's the Act 205 pension
Oh,
subsidy.
okay.
That's a subsidy we get from the MMO, the minimal municipal obligation. So unfortunately, it went down $27,161. Want to make note of that. So in all, the proposal 1 to proposal 2, revenue was increased $34,733. That does not include the reserve usage. Expense was increased $40,905, and then the difference between those two, that's the $6,172 that we see at the very top cell there, 01301-001, transfer from fund balance. And we're going to get into the fund balance projections in a little bit here as well. Did anybody have, so again, that cell, the prior proposal change, that cell that's yellow with bold red letters, does anybody have any questions on any of the items that were updated from proposal 1 to proposal 2? Again, I mentioned the large items. Other than that, it's a lot of actuals. Getting the expense accounts on the same methodology. For example, the maintenance for the buildings are all at 4,000. Things like that we went through, just kind of tweaked to get this to where it is. Other than that, again, it's mostly averages. We did have a final quote from Enterprise come in, 01-430-471-472. That is not an extra car, that is just us getting the information, getting that loaded in. So again, did anybody have any questions on all the changes that went into proposal 2?
Carl, just a note, we had talked earlier about this. The CARES Act funding,
Yes.
we have not realized anything from the CARES Act funding as of this date.
We have
So
not.
we don't know, actually, we don't know where we stand with that, both what is going to be allowable and also what we may get from the CARES Act.
Correct.
So that will have some impact on the revenue side of the budget.
It will.
But we don't know how much
Absolutely.
at this point.
So to date, we've spent roughly $7,000. So if we get all that money back, I do expect to get all that money back, that would more than make up for that $6,172 from proposal 1 to 2. Yes.
But with that said, we don't know if we may get some additional funding.
Correct.
Because
That is
of,
correct.
for example, the impact to our revenue stream
Yes,
with building permits and things like that, because everything was stalled out, people couldn't work.
absolutely.
There may be some funding coming out of that.
Yes. So hopefully sooner than later, we'll find out from the county.
It's questionable. They've been saying all along, the one thing they're not going to fund is lost revenue.
Right.
The county's been fairly consistent on that, and I haven't heard word that that's going to change. What Kyle and I have talked about, though, is they have expanded out what can be included in that.
Yeah.
So we may be looking at additional things that we could add into our list that would impact our total return.
Absolutely.
That's going to help. So we're going to go through everything. Kyle's done a fantastic job just keeping track of all this, all of our COVID spending. So
Yeah, when I said revenue, it would come in on the revenue side.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be just a gift. It would be for services performed that we would be reimbursed for.
Services
And
and/or-
reimbursement is probably a better word.
Yeah, purchases, whatever we've done, so all that has been tracked.
Yeah, during the fall conference with PSAB, the big questions thrown out during the, talking about the budget and COVID and everything, one of the biggest questions was, can we claim our lost revenue from not opening our pool from the CARES Act? And I think that was asked like 5 different times. They said, no, you can't request lost revenue. You can't request lost revenue.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you.
So if nobody has any questions on any of the items that were updated, we can move on to the staffing schedule. And of course, this is just the staffing schedule. This is the tool that I use. Now you're seeing a very truncated version. There's taxes, insurance is broken out a little bit further here. But what I'm trying to show everyone is the number of positions we have. Of course, the base pay, yearly bonuses, all of which are contractual. Gross yearly, and then of course the total employee costs. So that includes taxes and insurances. Does anybody have any questions on the staffing schedule? I don't think we've ever put that in the budget packet before. And that was asked for at the last budget meeting. More than happy to put that in there. Does anybody have any questions on the staffing schedule? This is a nice tool as well. You can see the accountant, it's about 10, 11 down. Looking at the GL, we don't have a one-off expense just for that position. That individual is expense to the clerical salary, so that kind of gives you a better idea of what's actually going into that expense line, the 0142 140. Same with the detective, further down, 410 131. The detective's pay is in there with all the other police officers, non-sergeants. I think that's about the only outliers that we had. Overtime, of course, is built in here. We have to capture the taxes for that as well. Pension costs are also in this list. You don't see it because I couldn't fit that on the page. I think we struggle enough with my 11 by 17 crowds. So again, does anybody have any question on the staffing schedule before we move on? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So I'll ask it just because it's listed here on the staffing schedule. I know there have been some asks about changing compensation to the mayor and council.
Yes.
Obviously, if that is increased, it would not go into effect until 2022, correct?
Yeah, you can't
And it
vote
would-
to increase your own, it has to be the next.
Right, and it would only be, there would only be 3 that would be increased in 2022, correct?
3 counselors.
3 counselors. And you're up, the mayor is up in, so it would be 3 counselors and the mayor.
When did that come up? Because I was thinking we would not collect compensation and save the borough some money. We're not collecting a windfall here. And I just thought if we collectively were not taking that, we could save maybe 10 or I don't know what it is, thousand a year. So I don't know when the increase was discussed. When did that?
Well, no,
It hasn't been discussed yet.
It hasn't
It's
been
been-
discussed here, that's why I brought it up, because
Oh, okay.
people had asked me
What the
if we
process
could
would be.
bring it, what the process was, and if we could bring it up, so that's why I brought it up.
Okay.
It's not that it wasn't discussed, it
I
wasn't
just
discussed
didn't know it
before.
was an issue.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
So I don't know if we want to put that on an agenda for, on a future agenda for discussion, or if we want to talk about it here, or what we want to do, what everyone's thinking. But like I said, if we do that increase, it would not affect the 2021 or 2021 budget. It would affect the 2022 budget. And I think based on the size of our borough, we could, it's like $250, I believe.
No, it's more than that.
Is it? I forget what it is, but I know,
It's like 560.
32, yeah, I don't have the email, but I'm gonna say 3250 a year. I might be wrong on that.
Sounds wrong.
And I think the mayor was about a little over that.
Yeah, he's closer to
I think it's
five.
like 10.
Nah,
Alright.
you're like.
I mean, if this is a topic,
4250 maybe for the mayor. It depends on how big the borough is. From 10,000 to whatever
Yeah.
that next tier of residents is, it's mandated by the.
if you're interested in doing that, yeah, we'll pull information together, and we can even survey some of the surrounding boroughs to see what the compensation is for elected officials, and if that's something you want to consider, we'll give you all the background on that.
Yeah.
I don't think we should do anything until we have a surplus in our budget. That's what I think.
Okay, that's entirely up to you
agree
guys
with
on
that.
that, if you want to bring it up.
Well, I certainly am not in favor of that. I just want to make that really, really clear because I ran to try to stop spending money, not to give the council a raise. I mean, I just think that's ridiculous. But anyway, I just want to be clear that I'm not in favor of that. So, thank you.
I'm in favor of it.
I think as long as we're taking money out of reserve to balance the budget, I don't think council should take any money.
I don't think you can even vote to not take any money, right? I think it works both ways, up and down, right? So even if we were to vote not to receive pay at this point, it would go into effect in
Right.
2021 and after the next election cycle.
right.
Right.
I think you're welcome to give your money back if you want to.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we could, but if we all collectively did it together.
You can't give the money back.
Pardon
You
me?
can give a percentage of it back. You can donate your money. You can donate any money you want.
I remember we went through this once before with some other council folk, and they had to donate it to a nonprofit somewhere.
I'm not sure about that. We can look into that too.
If and when that occurs, of course, it's going to go into the staffing schedule, the taxes and everything for the councilors and the mayor, of course, are calculated, and that's what gives us that total employee cost on the far right there. So I take those numbers, load them into the budget, and so this is obviously one of our biggest expense, personnel. It's just giving you a little bit more insight to the budget process, and again, who we have where throughout the organization. If there's no other questions for the staffing schedule, we'll advance to the first graph. This is the general fund budgeted transfer from fund balance year over year. I think this is the most important graph in this packet. And what it shows is where we were, where we are, and where we plan to be next year, of course, with our utilization of our fund balance reserves. I had a slightly different variation of this in the last budget meeting. I just cleaned it up a little bit just to show the overall performance and just to stick with that year-over-year review. So you can see on the far right there, the year-to-year change. Obviously, 2016 being the first year, there is no measure there. But 17, going into 2017, we actually increased our usage 110%. 0.4. Going into 18, we increased that once again by 28%. And then I'm happy to report in 19, we decreased that 21.8%. 2020, going into 2020, decreased it again 48.3%. The proposal one for 2021 decreased it again 1.1%. It's getting smaller, but it is still going down. And then proposal number two, negative 0.1. not much, but it is something. And you can see the dollar amounts right next to that. So in proposal number 2 that we're looking at tonight, it's not much, but it's definitely deserves mention. We're $364 under where we're at today, 2020. So that's our increases, our contractual increases, pay, vendors, everything going up. Yet we still managed to put forth a proposal number 2 that's $364 under what we're budgeted to use right now in 2020. So once again, we do have a far way to go. We're $575,403 proposed usage for proposal number 2, 2021. But we've never been this low. We're heading in the right direction. We got a lot of work to do, but we've come so very far in a very short period of time. Before we, in the graph right below that is just that information. Of course, above, just put in a nice visual graph for anybody, for everyone to look at. Does anyone have any questions on this information?
Well, Kyle, I'll go back to another discussion, and I don't know if it's, let me say this, I don't know if it started yet or not, but there was some discussion about refinancing the bond.
Yes.
Has that started?
It has. It has. We have quotes for multiple vendors. We're going to look into that. That's going to be coming to council very shortly.
So refinancing the bond, from what I heard and what I know of what bonds are doing right now, there should be significant dollar savings there,
Yes.
which will impact this number.
Yeah.
It's going to impact, short term, it's going to impact Fund 18. Right now, we're making all of our debt service payments out of Fund 18. If we were to, at the end of the day, to your point, it's going to save money regardless for us. Whatever fund it ultimately comes out of, Fund 1, Fund 18, and capital, absolutely, there are quite substantial opportunities to save a lot of money there. We have 8 different options that we can look at. And again, we're going to put that together for everyone here to look at. We're definitely going to pursue that. The time has never been better to refinance that debt.
Absolutely.
It's quite a substantial amount. So,
And I personally feel we need to do it this year, very soon.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
The sit and wait,
I think
the
we need
interest
to do it
rate
real
any
quick.
day now could skyrocket, absolutely.
Carl, is there a fee involved to refinance?
There will be, that's going to be the next stage. So we're going to look at all of our options, we're going to see what's available to us. We'll pick that option that we think is most favorable, and then we'll advance into, that'll be the next step. We'll see what's involved, the timing, the fees, what it's going to take to get that done. So we're not there
Is
yet.
that the payback period then?
That is one of the options.
Okay.
Like I said, there's 8 different options. Some are saving more than others. Some are front-loading lower payments. Some are back-loading it. Some are evenly dispersed. So it's going to go hand in hand with us having that 5-year plan ready, so we know what best fits what we need. Obviously, saving as much as we can, regardless, is going to be our ultimate goal. But again, we'll put a whole presentation together for that sooner than later. Within the next couple of weeks, we're going to get that done.
Yeah, did you want me to give feedback on what was sent out? Because I agreed with you,
Sure.
and that was my choice.
Okay. Yeah, I just put the options together, emailed Heather and Mark, just say, hey, this is the next step, and now we're going to get it together for everyone, and we'll go from there. So you'll all see it again in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, we wanted to lock in the budgets first before we got to that point. And again, Fund 18 isn't done
And
yet.
it is significant savings.
That's one of the reasons Fund 18 is locked in.
Significant,
Absolutely.
more than $1 million,
Yes.
like 1.2.
Yeah, one of the options, 1.2 billion, absolutely. So does anybody have any questions on this page before we move on? Again, I mean, this just highlights we're going in the right direction. We're making drastic changes very quickly at that.
The only question I have on
Yes.
that is, what's it going to take for us to get down to 0?
As of now, I'm just going to throw a dollar amount at you. $575,403.
No, what I mean is,
How do we do it?
How do we do it?
what's gonna get that 575 down to 0?
So
What's the time frame?
we can do it in multiple ways. The least desirable, and I throw it out there only because it is an option, but it's not an option that would even want to entertain, and I'm sure immediately on social media is going to jump out and scream at us, is you raise your millage. Now, we could raise our millage and cover this amount instantly, but that is not anything that I would propose, I would ever bring forward to council, that is the one way we can close the gap. The other way that we close the gap is to increase property values here in town. The third way is you try to find additional revenue sources, which is still a possibility, but the revenue sources that we can possibly add on will not close this gap. So in my mind, the only thing that we can do that's going to be effective and acceptable in this community is find ways to increase the property values in this town. So that's why we're aggressively looking at some of these projects, to get these projects up finished, get their land value reassessed, and get that new tax value on the books. That's what we have to look at. And I'd love to do it in the next 5 years without ever doing a tax increase. That'd be my goal.
There's one option that I think of when I think of that, and that is reduction in spending. And of course, I think
Well, yeah.
we've hit all the low-hanging fruit. So, we've cut all the low-hanging fruit. And I'm sitting here looking at one giant elephant, and I think we all know what that giant elephant is. And is it time to start thinking about what we can do to rein in that expense? And we all know what that is. Public safety, the police department.
I think we're
You don't
figuring
have
out.
options.
I'm sorry?
You don't have options at this point.
I'm not saying, I'm not advocating in any way getting rid of the police. But we need to figure out how we can, what we can do to, because it's killing us.
You got to remember, public safety is the reason you exist.
No, and I know it is. I know it is, and that's why I'm saying I'm not advocating in any way getting rid of that, but we've got to be able to figure out how to do it cheaper.
Some of that discussion is underway. But let me tell you this, if anybody, not you, excuse me there, if anybody thinks that you can join a regional police force or merge a police force to save money, you're wrong. It will probably cost you a couple dollars.
Why is that?
That's just the way it's been coming out in all the history of regionalization and consolidations. There's always an additional cost, whether it be buildings, equipment, whatever have you. I just had that conversation very recently. Now, there are some efficiencies that ultimately may start, after a period of time, realize some savings. For example, traditionally, when you merge, or whether it's a joint or just a merger, a one-in-one merger, you will assume all officers, and then it'll trick down to what you think you need. So right away, you're not saving any money on your personnel costs. Okay? Eventually, you may.
Now, are you talking about redundancies with the,
For example, if two police departments want to merge,
Right.
okay, and there's 20 officers on one and 15 on the other, okay, when you merge, you're going to end up with 35 officers. Okay, now if you determine that you only need, say, 30, you will attrit down to 30. But typically, that's the way it is. Whenever there's a merger, you will assume all personnel, and then attrit down to where you're needed. So there's no savings there. But I've had conversations with numerous people with DCED who has helped facilitate some mergers, and that's one of the first things they'll tell you. Eventually, you may save some money, but initially, it may cost you some money.
Well, I mean, I'm not here to talk on behalf of the chief, and I don't know all the statistics, but I have been around for 3 years, and I've seen the reports come through, and I've been part of a lot of conversations regarding public safety and the police force. And if I may surmise what I believe I know, Mayor, if I'm wrong, you correct me, this is very general. But as I understand it, this borough per capita is one of the most active as far as the police force goes in the county. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yes.
it is.
I also understand that our police force, if you were to ratio the amount of activity and the calls in this borough to how many officers there are to respond to those calls, we're understaffed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Here's what else I know. Equipment gets dated, needs replaced. Officers need trained. There's a lot we can't do concerning salaries, unions, pensions, and all the other things that are out of our control. Here's what else I know. We made a big decision recently with Enterprise to try to get some of these vehicle issues contained. That's going to save us a lot of dollars in the future. That was a smart move. That's one of the potential control factors that we do have control over that we've taken advantage of. But I think there's even a bigger elephant in the room, and I don't even know how much control we have over this. I mean, we had a revolt against the recent tax hike.
Mhm.
We were, what, 8 mils now?
Yeah,
Our school taxes are 26 mils, are they not?
yeah.
Yes.
That is ridiculous.
Yes. it is.
Ridiculous. Why is not anybody talking about their crazy school taxes?
Some of that's state mandated, though. We can't change some of those things.
Well, we are the second highest to Lancaster City, right? There are other boroughs around that have, municipalities have 3% school taxes. How do we, I don't know if it's mandated or not. I'm not an expert on the school taxes.
I'm not saying all
What
of it.
I'm saying is I never hear anybody talking about this 26 mil school tax and how ridiculous it is. I just hear about the property taxes and how bad council was for having to raise taxes because we need to balance the budget. Let's talk about that elephant.
There again, it goes back to Mark's statement. You must increase the value of your municipality, the real estate value of your community. That is the key. Bring in business and continue to raise the housing stock that's here to go from that $30,000 house to the $100,000 house. That's where you make a difference. There's another thing, and thank you very much for that. With the enterprise, it's going to save you money. You saw the figures.
Yes.
Now, let's be honest. It remains to be seen. Okay, I'll say that because I'm not going to say, okay, we want a pig in a poke. I want to see it. Okay, but I do believe what they're telling me because other municipalities have realized that, have been in it longer. We also are in a position where quite a few years ago now, we hired like five or six officers within 1 year. Those officers are going to be retiring in the next couple of years. When they retire, they're at the top, they're basically at the top of their game with time off, wages, whatever have you. They're there. If and when those folks retire and you hire new officers, you will be realizing the savings because you'll be going back to that starting rate.
But then that raises up.
Excuse me?
Overtime, yeah.
Yeah, and it'll grow, but initially, you're going to save some money there and you're going to move through. You got to combine all these factors, but believe me, we are constantly looking on how we can cut costs in the police department. But remember this, because of recent developments, and Lord knows what's going to come out of this within the next year, we're now looking at the cost of body cams and some other things, So some of these, and I'll call them unfunded mandates that may come down the pike,
Yep.
can have an impact. So we really need to look at this stuff. And I'm not saying this isn't, you're right, Heather, this is the big elephant, and we need to look at it, and we need to constantly look at it and figure out how we can do it. Provide service at the lowest cost. So, we just keep going at it and see if we can't find ways to save money.
Because, I mean, when it comes down to it, that's what our citizens see. They see that, we have this giant expenditure, and, I mean, I get it, Todd. I know we are, I mean, and I've stood out there and I've said to people, we are the busiest. And I've justified that, but I also know that I have a responsibility by the people that elected me to ask these hard questions about what can we do to get more efficient? How can we get that number down to zero?
And we also need to be mindful each time we negotiate a contract.
Yes, we do.
Which has impacts. And there have been some significant gains while still providing a good, honest wage for our employees
Yes.
that have been made, but there is some more that can be done.
I want to go back to the school tax just for a minute, because I still think we, as the municipal tax, we have more flexibility with how we use the money in some of these projects. The school does not have as much flexibility with spending. And I'm not saying I don't hate to pay that tax, because that's a whopper. We have residents, we all have to pay both, and so if we have more flexibility here, and I'll just say it, I think council over the years has been addicted to spending. They just keep spending. There's no taking a break or a pause or saying, we've spent enough, let's take a break now. We just keep spending. So I just feel we have the flexibility at this end to control some of that, where the school doesn't have as much flexibility because the state mandates some of these things. So for what it's worth, that's.
I'll just say it. I would like to see pressure being put on the school to merge with another district.
I agree.
Because I think that is the best way, that's the best way for our citizens, and it's the best way to service our students.
I'm going to be brutally honest with you. In order to have a merger, someone must want you.
And I know, and we don't have much to offer.
That's the problem. They have to want you. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, that's one of the things that I hear when I talk about whether it's schools or police. There's some negativity that we need to fight through. And I think you all are on the way with your market house and some of the economic development and the things that I see, the things down at the trail, the usage this year and the comments I'm getting from around the county, that's changing. And you can see homes are being sold before they're even on the market, and they're being sold to people moving into Columbia. That's a key, that whole thing is changing, and hopefully it's changing for the better. One thing, here's a good one for you, Sharon. These are things that we all can do, whether it be school boards, borough council, mayor, whatever have you. We need to start, and I've talked about this for years, we need to get together and get into Harrisburg and start talking to these people. Because of schools of choice, okay? Right now, Columbia Borough School District has a cyber school. It costs about $4,000 a year to educate a pupil at Columbia Borough Cyber School. If they choose to go to a private cyber school, it costs $10,000. And our cyber school enrollment went up about 100 students this year. Okay, and I can tell you, and I don't want to get into those numbers here, because that's their job, not mine or theirs, but it's a concern of all ours. But the truth is, we can go to Harrisburg and we can get with our legislators and we can say, you need to do something about these kind of things. Because it affects Columbia Borough, you know. And hopefully if we join together and get in there and do that work, maybe we'll get somewhere. But I don't have a problem with school of choice. But if you have a choice to go to a cyber school that costs $4,000 versus $10,000, you know, make them go to the $4,000.
Do you know how much we spend per pupil now?
I can tell you this year, boy, I don't want to give you this number. I can tell you this year it's going to be somewhere around $600,000 for cyber school.
And yeah.
Don't take me at heart on that because I'm not on the school board and I'm not a school administrator. That's a number that I heard floated.
For every child that actually goes to school, do you know how much?
Cost per pupil. Yeah, there used to be a number, and I don't know what that is, Pam, because that number was always figured out that if you lived outside the district and you wanted to come here to school, there was a number that you had to pay tuition. I don't know what that number is anymore. It's been a long time since I heard that number. My guess is it would be somewhere in the $20,000 range. Because last I heard it was around 12.
You know, and I hate to say this too, because are we getting a fair return on our investment?
Exactly.
I apologize. I feel like I sent our conversation down a rabbit trail, and something that we have no control over as council. I apologize if I got you out of your groove there, Kyle.
Well, truthfully though, you do have control of it. You can talk every time you see your state senator, your state representative, you need to hammer them on this stuff to try to change this stuff. Howard talked, you know, he knows, we were at breakfasts and we talked about it, didn't we, Howard? And you were there, Heather, and we talked about this stuff to our legislators, and we got to keep hammering on that.
Yeah, and it's important for people, for the citizens to know that we aren't just thinking about our bubble. We are concerned with the community as a whole, not just what happens in this room and what's happening on this paper. We're thinking about it, you know, holistically, and I think that's important for people to hear. And so when we're talking about these different projects and things that we're trying to do to increase our property values and trying to, you know, it's not just about what's happening in this room. It's about the community as a whole and how it's going to affect not just our budget, but how it's going to affect the school's budget also.
I have one comment. Mark said about property values going up, the reassessment would bring more money in to us. That's all well and good, and I can probably see all these faces on the live stream saying, oh my goodness, now our property value is going up, now my taxes are going to go up. When we have over $850,000 in back taxes owed this year, people that can't pay their taxes to the borough. And I don't know if increasing your property value right now is a good thing or a bad thing. Is that going to increase people that are not going to be able to afford to pay their taxes again, or is that going to increase it?
Well, the only way
I'm all for your property going up to sell it, but if you're looking on it to go up to collect taxes, you know, you take half of that $800,000 and that $575,000 goes away.
But the only way that your individual property value or any individual's property value is going to go up is if they make substantial improvements to the property that causes a reassessment. So a person that has a certain assessment and they may be struggling to pay their property taxes, their property value isn't going to automatically go up and their taxes go up for no reason. It's only going to happen when
And
It
that's the
makes
reason why
sense.
nobody gets permits to do anything.
When when there are significant improvements, or, you know, the home gets sold and, you know, things like that happen.
But he
So-
just said that Columbia's property value has gone up.
Sure. And some of that is not residential property values, but it's commercial, industrial development that is going to improve the property
Right, I
values.
understand.
That's where your biggest chunk is, but you remember this, Howard. Look back at the land bank work.
Yeah,
Home bought $30,000, sold for over $100,000. That's the key. It's not your home going up or my home going up. It's that home that's being rehabbed, sold, whatever have you. That's the key. That $30,000 house that we have code issues with, that someone gets in there and rehabs it and brings it up to $100,000, that's where the increase is going to be.
Right, that's why I've liked the land bank for
Yeah.
2 years, over 3 years now of what they're doing.
Yeah,
You know.
and back to one of the things that I know you've been championing. We need to talk seriously with people about why individuals, year after year, by law, do not have to pay their taxes. We need to talk about that. We need to talk about that with our legislators and get that changed. Absolutely, I'm with you 100% on that.
Yeah, I did, you saw my paper I got from
Yeah.
Pinkerton.
That number, what is it, 800 some
It was
thousand?
$850,000 last
Now,
time.
is that every year, and then that's double the next year and double the next year, or is that just a rollover year after year after year?
It's a $150,000
Okay, that's what I thought.
increase from the year before.
So it's $150,000 more this
Increase
year?
from the year before.
Okay. So about 150,000 each year behind in collections, which adds to the overall debt. I understand.
I didn't follow that.
And what happens there, some folks don't pay their taxes, but they use that as working capital.
Right.
And then they may pay just enough to keep out of the sheriff's sale back, what is it, 2 years, Howard?
2 years.
Back 2 years, and then, so this year, they'll go back 2 years, pay that tax, but the money that they owe for the next 2 years is working capital that they're using. So it's a loophole that they're using that we need to work on closing.
But that loophole can also benefit you if you run into a financial hardship.
Absolutely, yes, it can.
So let's not get carried away there. The second thing is, we're under, what, 8 months now, where renters aren't required to pay?
Yeah.
So landlords aren't collecting money, and I bet you a big chunk of increase you're seeing there is probably landlords.
This was before the COVID thing, the $850,000.
But you're
I know
right.
it
You're
could-
right.
it could be a lot
That's
worse
gonna,
now.
that's gonna change this
It
year.
could be a lot worse
Yeah.
now, you know, this was last, when was it? June?
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you look, what percentage of our taxes for 2020 have been collected? We're really up there, aren't we?
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we're basically on par with any other year.
95%.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead. I mean, yeah, this is the work meeting, so I'm not very.
I think we're around 95%.
Okay, you can go next then.
Is it that high?
But yeah, I knew we were, I was very surprised when I saw that we were so,
As of the end of September, we didn't close out October yet, we're at 92%. So we're probably about 95 now.
so we're on par with every other year.
Yes.
So that's good. I mean,
Taxes
we
haven't
haven't
changed.
seen,
It's everything.
we haven't
Some
seen
other
an
stuff.
increase in, you know, delinquency. Yeah, I was looking for that word, thank you.
Not yet. Again, you know, they have the base period is the end of November.
Yeah.
So we'll see after that. But thankfully, we are on par with most years.
So I would assume if you're not paying your property tax, you're also not paying your school tax. What do they do about that?
Same,
Same thing.
So, yeah, it's
the lien on.
it's the legality of it. They
Work with
can't
the
do
county
anything
system and
else.
let the county collect the back taxes.
Which isn't happening,
It is, it's just a slow process, yeah.
you know?
Yep.
What were we talking about?
Tell me her.
I'm done.
Sorry.
Signaling.
I'm sorry.
I was waiting for a flag to come up.
The big one.
I sort of been like asking all the tough questions
Well, I
tonight.
mean, the reality of it is, it's public safety, administration, and roadway.
Mhm.
Those are your three big budget items.
Yep.
Admin after that.
So that's required, or not required, but that's our function. So the budget is what it is. I mean, you can cut, you can say I'm not gonna do roads next year, but then the following year, you gotta do twice as many roads. You can say, I'm gonna limit the police force, but then crime rate skyrockets. I mean, these are functions, the best way you can do it is control. Control the growth of the police force, control the highway they do a 5-year plan now regularly and stay on task there. But Mark's correct. The only way you can generate more money, the easiest way you can generate more money is raising the values of properties. It doesn't mean homes, although they will automatically go up as the values of other properties go up. It means businesses. It means, downtown Columbia being revitalized, small industry in the area. That's what's going to generate the growth.
So it's going after underutilized properties, vacant buildings, getting them back into a productive use. That's the way, and it's a very long, slow process, but it's the most sustainable process.
But it also requires investment.
It does.
Yes, it does.
Investment from the borough to get it jump-started. So, I mean, we didn't like what we saw the last 3 or 4 years of expenses and how they went over, but as we're seeing now, the values are starting to go up.
Well, you see, I wanted to say that earlier. When we looked at the fund,
Right.
what is the reserve fund? And we saw those big years of pulling out of that to balance the budget. Those were years when I think council was making, I don't remember all the projects, they were just making some pretty hefty decisions on investment to try to get the borough into a place to get projects moving forward in order to do exactly what you're talking about. Make it an appealing place to bring business and to bring your families and to increase property values overall.
I don't disagree. I mean,
But-
some of the stuff that is spending money on, I would disagree with you on that.
You might,
Yes.
and that's fair, and that's fair. But what I'm saying is that the intent behind those big expenditures, when they had that budget from the sale, I
Right.
guess,
Right.
was to try to kickstart that kind of momentum.
I understand. But anyway, that was my point. We have to raise the values because the budget's not going to go down. Even if it goes down this year, next year we'll start growing again. I mean, you never see a budget go backwards. So the only thing we can do really is increase the values or raise taxes, which nobody wants to do.
One thing, I had several people ask me about why I would vote to approve closing streets off so neighbors can have a block party and everything. And I said, because honestly, that's what is going to deter crime. When your neighbors know each other and they're looking out for each other.
Community.
And the community. And that's what makes people want to be here, is when there is a strong community. So that is helping, and it's helping prevent the crime. It's helping prevent, the less desirable things from happening in your neighborhoods. I told people, they were asking me on Tuesday at the polls, I'm like, I will prove those things all day long if people are getting together and they're coming together as a community.
Sure.
Pam, I have to tell you, that Halloween party, I'm so glad that Parks and Rec is doing the small things like that, because those are the things that matter to people. It doesn't always have to be this big, huge, multi-million-dollar project that we're spending money on, but having some games in the park with a photo booth for people to take pictures, and everyone was having a good time. They're all like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. We love this, we love this. Those are the things that matter. And that's what's going to help raise our stock. Get rid of that awful you know, the stigma that we have.
Well said.
You know, I mean, those are it's the little things. It's when I saw the one day that there was graffiti in the street, it was taken care of within hours. I said, those are the things that matter. When the residents can see that we are taking care of these things, we're not just letting it go. We're taking care of it. We're trying to draw everyone together. This is what matters.
Community.
Exactly, and that's why we're all here.
I'll say this, one of the things that I'm committed to is us as a borough leading by example. So that's why we're spending money to, have Borough Hall painted. That's why we're looking in the very details of the Market House, making sure that it looks good inside and outside. That's why we're looking at ways to invest in the parks so that our parks are neat and clean. If you haven't had a chance to see it yet, go down to Maple Park and we put a new roof on the gazebo, the place down there. It looks great. It looks fantastic. It just adds that we care about our public spaces, and it adds that sense of we're serious and we're going to make things look better. And I promise you this, study after study that I've read is when municipalities invest in their public space, it'll make the municipality more attractive for people to live in and invest in. You drive around here now versus 10 years ago, and the quality of the streets here in town has greatly improved, We've been investing in that and making those changes, and those things pay off over time. You don't see it immediately, but after a while, when you drive down a street and there's beautiful trees and the street is well paved, you have a different impression, a different sense of place. Then you run over potholes, and there's dead trees, and there's broken trash cans and benches. You realize this is not a place I want to live. So as we continue to invest in these things, that is another key piece that will improve the image and improve the value of this community. I promise you that.
Speaking on that note, I had asked about, at one of the other meetings, about possibly getting information from our trash hauler about increasing the amount of the number of collections within our parks and on our streets, even if it's only several months. Have we discussed that with them and increased our, is there a change in cost in that?
Just to keep things cleaner.
Just to keep things cleaner, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
I did have a discussion with River Valley. We did have 2 cans that you picked up on 2 days.
Yeah.
It seemed like it helped.
Good.
So going forward here, we can, keep that going. Actually, I don't think they charge us extra for it, so.
Good. Thank you, River Valley. No. Yeah, I know, right? We won't say it. All right.
Okay.
So going forward, now that it's been hijacked, take it away.
Okay, so the next page, just using that same set of information, of course, I just broke out the starting budget amount year over year in the blue, and below that, the ending budget amount in orange. Just so we can see that overall trend, we see that build, and then that gradual, or sharp, depending on the graph you're looking at, decline in the, again, usage of the general fund balance. The next page, probably would have been nice if we hit this before that conversation, but nonetheless, this is a fund balance projection. Now, this is using the unreserved fund balance. This is on the balance sheet every month of the report that we put out. It's using the unreserved fund balance as of 9/31. So the end of September, like I said, October is not yet closed out. We'll be doing that over the weekend, early next week, to get their reporting out. So this is as of the end of September. That's at $7 million there, the top 2 cells. So using that number, that 3.7, drop down to the next set of information, the 2018 actuals. Now I'm using 18 just because it's the peak. It's the highest fund balance reserve use that we've had over the last couple of years. So if we maintain that amount, that usage of $2 million, it only get us 1.87 years. Then if we drop down the next row, the 2020 starting budgeted amount for fund balance reserve usage, that would have got us, it did increase 4.2 years. The current 2020 budgeted amount, now it's up to 6.37 years. The original, the first prep, which again is what we do internally, what I do internally before we get all the department heads together, that amount, 822,000, 4.46 years, so that definitely took a dip. Then we got everybody together internally, and we came forward with proposal number 1. It went back up to 6.44, which actually is, as you can see, an increase at longer term of where we're at currently. Proposal number 2, again, there was a slight increase there, so it went down very slightly to 6.38, but as you can see, not by much, but it is over where we're at currently. So that's a very good message. We're going to do everything we can to maintain that going forward. Because as was mentioned, of course, every year our expenses in the budget are going to go up. We have raises, vendors, premiums, insurance premiums, you name it. They're going to go up. So this chart I put together just to highlight once again how far we've come. We have a long way to go. But what an amazing job. I mean, we've curtailed that amazingly well internally to date. Does anybody have any questions on this graph?
I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Mark, when we were interviewing you, we told you this was our number 1 concern, was our budget, and we needed help. And I think, you know, even though you haven't been here a full year, we're already seeing that you've taken that seriously and you have helped. And Kyle.
And we will keep going. I look at this and I keep staring at the projection in years, and that's my marker, because I want to know that, in my mind, that the revenue versus expenses, I need those 2 lines to cross, so that eventually we're making at least break even, or we're starting to put money back into reserve fund again, and we're generating more than we're spending. That's where I want to get to.
Right.
So we still have work to do, but we're going the right way. We absolutely going the right way.
So refinancing may get us more years.
Well, refinancing, we're paying that out of Fund 18 though, remember that. So this is out of the general fund.
Correct.
So that's not going to be a direct benefit here, but it does improve our overall fiscal profile.
Well, it will stave off having to transfer from general to capital
Yeah.
to do projects.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So in a way, it's going to save.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I just thought of something else. And while Jake is here, I will ask, because now, you never know, it's 2020, anything could happen. How is our inclement weather supplies at this point, and do we have enough in the budget in case? I haven't looked at the Farmer's Almanac, so I have no idea what it's projected.
You don't want to look at it.
Oh, jeez.
Just watch the squirrels.
Farmer's Almanac is calling for heavier than average.
They know.
I think they know.
So, but
We'll see.
we're good.
We're sitting good right now, just from what was left over last winter. We still got, well, there's plenty of money yet for salt for this year.
Okay.
The new contract just came out that started October here, and salt actually went down $5 a ton.
Nice.
So, now we're sitting good as far as for materials.
Good. I just thought of that.
We don't have to use them, so.
Yeah,
Over
that
time.
would be nice. It would save us
But when I looked at the money, the department, Jake, and the guys have saved in the last year or two by being to go out and pre-treat the streets with that brine machine.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Huge.
Yes.
huge is right. What is it, Jake, 1/3 the salt that we used to use?
Yeah, per application.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
Okay. So the next page, I'm just highlighting the reviews by type. So this is using the chart of accounts, each of the sections, of course. I'm taking that total amount and we're listing it here. This is by numerical order. See the GL number on the far left there at the top. And then going down from there, we're seeing the total budget amount for 2021, again, proposal number 2. And we're seeing your percentage amount, so how much that particular line item, the percentage of the total revenues is the best way to put it. Down below is just a chart of all those items. Now down below in the chart, I did put from the highest to lowest. I could not make that information fit on that chart, percentages or otherwise, but you can see real property tax, real estate property tax, of course, is our highest, followed by local taxes, EIT, LST, fund balance reserve as of now, and then the intergovernmental revenues thereafter, and then down that list. Does anybody have any questions on this page? If not, we'll go to the next. So this is revenues by subtype. So you don't see it on the chart of accounts, because once again, I would need a much bigger page to put that on, but I assign types, subtypes to each of the revenues and expenditures, which we'll get to in a moment here. And that's what you're seeing listed in that GL series name. So just like the prior chart, I'm just listing the total amount of those types and the percentage of the total revenue that each of those types make up. Once again, at the bottom, had a little more luck with putting those numbers into that chart. You can see tax, not surprising to anybody. It's first and foremost 5.2. Subsidies we get from the state and federal government. Second, agreements, so agreements that we have with different parties bring in third highest revenue. And the fourth is just fines, and then from there on you can work down the list. Does anybody have any questions on this page? Okay. Now we can go to the next. So now this is expenditures by type. Once again, using the chart of accounts. Same format as a revenue in numerical order. The total budget amount, the expense amount, and the percentage of each of those line items. Same thing in the graph at the bottom. I then put those in numerical order. So public safety police, highway department, administrative department, we'll call it general government, buildings and properties thereafter, fire, code compliance, planning and zoning, and then on down the list. Does anybody have any questions with this information? That chart should say type, not source. We'll wrap that up in the next one. Next page. Just like the revenues, we have expenditures by subtype. So once again, these are types that I assign to all the expenditures throughout the chart of count in the budget. And yet again, we're seeing that alphabetical order, GL series at the top, the total budget amount, and the total percentage each of those line items make up for the total budgeted expenses. Chart down below, once again, compensation is our highest expense, followed by insurance, services, third-party services, pension, costs, distributions, disbursements, if you will, followed by taxes that we pay out, and utilities, and then on down the list once again. Does anybody have any questions on this page? I think there's just some neat information to see. Then to wrap up, the last section of the general fund, proposal number 2, are the budgetary notices. These, we did see these in the last, in proposal number 1 for the general fund. I haven't added anything new, but I wanted to keep them a part of the list. For this page, page 16 of the general fund anyway, for all the same items that we saw before. And I did forget to mention prior, Jansen Park does not have any expenses to it, so I did take that one out. I wanted to mention that when I went through the chart of accounts, and I forgot to look at that. So again, we did take out Jansen Park. That was 4x4, 452. So again, that has been taken out. And then the last page, if we could do these tonight, that would be great. If not, then we can of course do it later this month. Auditing point. These positions listed here, borough manager, myself, finance manager, code compliance manager, public works manager, and a property inspector, part-time, are non-contractual positions. So because these don't have contracts, council needs to go through and approve the raises for each of these. We did this last year as well. So So again, I don't know if we want to do this tonight, if you want to do this another night, that's fine as well. It's just something I'm bringing up again, just so we hit it. Obviously, we don't want to run afoul of auditing. So I'll leave it up to you if you want to do that
Does
tonight or
that
not.
require a vote then by us?
Yeah, last year we just did I guess they just went down the line and everyone just, yea or nay, and it went through the process.
Is this a personnel issue or?
I wouldn't think, it wasn't last year, I don't know if you want to
No,
make it into one.
it's finance.
It's awkward, I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
Good time to start negotiating.
But again, it's an audit point, nothing more than that. Now, these numbers, the 2021, 3%, as you can see on the staffing schedule, is on par with most everyone but the newest officers, and that's contractual. So this is a key part with everyone else. Once again, the 3%, and again, those 2021 salary numbers are what's already built into proposal number 2. So you're just reaffirming that 3%, this is the total amount. When the auditor comes in sooner than later next year, I can show these to her, we can move on to bigger and better things. So once again, it's totally up to everyone here. If you want to do it tonight, another night, that's fine. Up to you if you want.
I would prefer not to do it tonight.
You can put it on the next agenda,
Yeah.
or you can do it all with the budget when you move the budget forward, up to you. It's just good to get it, to know that we can lock that in as a number, so when you approve the final budget, this is all wrapped up into it. So we can put it on the upcoming agenda if you want.
So is 3% cost of living or?
3% is what's in the contract for all the contract employees, the union employees all get 3%. It's just trying to keep that fair balance between the union and non-union employees.
Okay.
Kyle, before we leave this
Yes.
general fund, I just
Yeah,
have
please.
a question.
Sure.
Um,
The chart of accounts.
And I guess I'm on page 2 of your
Yes, okay.
sheets there. Under the consulting services, 01402 is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
where you're putting Gavin, added Gavin PR?
Yes, you can see that with the larger copies that I gave you. You can see that in red to the far right, you're absolutely correct. Added Gavin PR firm,
At
2,500
2,500 for 6
6
months?
months. Yes, correct.
That's what's being budgeted?
Yes. Okay, so there's some coming out now, 2020. And then the remainder of that for 6 months is going to come out of 21, but you're absolutely correct.
Is there anything else under that consulting services, just that?
For next year, that is it. What was coming out of that, we had,
Suzanne, wasn't it?
no, it wasn't Suzanne, Karen.
Oh, Karen, yeah.
The planning and zoning was coming out of that. The interim borough manager, and we had one was coming out of that. So that originally, you can see proposal 1, we dropped that down. And then with that Gavin coming on, PR firm, I'm going to bump that back up because that has the general fund.
Kyle, is YSN paid in full?
They are, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. Does anybody else have any questions on the chart of accounts? I know there's a lot.
Why are our legal fees budgeted so high? I compared to Liz and think Mountjoy, and we are really high.
We, looking at, I guess how we kind of started tonight off with a lot of the codes, a lot of the policies, the employment contracts that we either have to tighten up or create, period. I don't think there's going to be any, we're definitely going to utilize the services. I don't know if you want to chime in. There's a lot of stuff that we have to, so you're right, it is very high expense.
So, yeah, Evan's bills in the beginning of the year were very high because we were going through a lot of transition and dealing with a lot of issues. We've had high legal fees due to some personnel issues we've dealt with this year and some challenges and appeals and other ones that we've gone through. But I will say this, if we're looking for ways to save money, the last thing I will cut is our attorney's fees and our professional services fees. Because the less that we have legalized, looking over legal contracts and legal documents, the bigger chance you have of getting into a bigger problem down the road. So I'm not out to waste money, but I have always learned that you keep your attorneys and your engineers and everyone close by and you utilize them to a proper extent so that you're not getting yourself in trouble down the road. I can tell you this, since I have started, we have uncovered all kinds of stuff that I wish had been done differently, or agreements that could have been written differently, and contracts that could have been improved that we need to keep a close eye on and do them right. So again, not trying to waste money, not trying to overdo it, but next year's legal fees will be lower because of this year's startup and the high cost we had. But I don't feel like that's a waste of money for the borough to spend.
I'm just asking, 'cause
Sure.
I mean, it says 137,000 something is the actual for this year, right?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
what we're looking at? Total?
No, the actuals, that would be the 1, 2, 3, 4th row in.
Well, what's this 2020 current
89,
actuals?
2020, are you looking at the solicitor fee, or are you looking
Well,
at?
the combination of the legal.
Oh, you're looking,
fees.
okay, then yes.
The
You're looking at
labor
everything.
counsel, solicitor, and arbitration come out to
137.
actual 137,
Correct.
761.
Yes, you're right, yes.
That's a lot of money.
It is.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've definitely had some,
We've had some big expenses in
we
legal stuff.
did, we had some challenges this
Mhm.
year. And the other thing we have to remember is the cost for changing the solicitor, that was an increase from what we had been paying before. And with all the transition, we really,
And the feeling is that we need Evan here 3 meetings a month.
2. He doesn't always come to the workshops. He comes to the.
No, I
workshops.
understand
Yeah.
that, but we can't save some money that way.
If at some point you guys feel like you don't want the attorney here at every meeting, we can look at that, and I don't necessarily advise that. That's not a big cost. I have him come to council meetings.
no, you know, I mean, the savings is,
Not worth it.
I don't think it's worth it. I mean, what will make a difference is when we are, when we've restored trust and everything else, and we stop getting such a huge volume of right-to-know requests that require assistance from the attorney. And, I mean, some things are easy, and then there's other things that we keep fighting on, and, you know.
Well, we wouldn't have to fight on those if we were more transparent.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, once we've restored our trust and everything else, and once we, you know.
There wouldn't be so many picky right-to-know requests. I don't know if that's true.
Okay, thanks.
We've gotten, I feel like we've gotten better. I mean, things have improved, and I think we are restoring trust, and but
Okay, so the general fund, if you've got any more questions, anybody has anything, let me know. Otherwise, we'll move on to the bond capital fund, Fund 30. Which should be the next portion of the packet. Might be a couple pages in. There's another listing of the chart of accounts for the general fund, so it'll be immediately after that. And that too you will see. Bond Capital Fund, Fund 030, proposal number 1, table of context. Capital report's only 1 page.
There it is.
It's the chart of account. So if we turn to that, so of course, proposal number 1 is the first time that we have brought this to council. And I'm sure you see a drastic change in the volume of accounts listed there. And that quite obviously is because primarily until we get that RAC P grant money back in, we don't want to budget more, obviously, than what cash we think we're going to have in there throughout the 2021. So the only projects that we have listed for 2021, Market House, Walnut Street, traffic signal improvements, and Borough Hall improvements, obviously for next year. Not a whole lot going on beyond that. Does anybody have any questions on this chart of accounts? Again, it's probably one of the smallest ones we have next to the liquid fuels.
I just want to say that I am glad to see finally a more manageable list of
Oh, you me both.
projects.
Trust me.
And I'm glad that we have been able to get things more manageable.
Well, and I'll say this, one of the things that Kyle has built this year, which is a huge management tool for us, is every project now has its own financial packet that he tracks all the costs and the expenses, and so we can get a summary sheet of that, and then it breaks down everything. So we're now properly tracking and managing project costs on individual projects more efficiently, and that helps us significantly, and also helps us to find ways that we can improve things. And Kyle's been working on, making sure that everything that can be billed to a project is billed, so it's coming out of the capital fund, not out of the general fund.
That's very important. Very important. Yeah, thanks. There's tracking approvals, change orders. It's a nice measure for our vendors, contractors, wherever the project may be. It's a one-stop shop. So I think we'll incorporate that to some financial reporting going forward, just so you can see what we're doing on the back end. But all that work, it makes us doing our budgets for any given year, and in that 5-year plan that we're always working towards, so much easier to manage. So it has been a great tool. Thank you, Mark. Does anybody have any questions on Bond Capital Fund 30, Proposal 1?
What Borough Hall improvements are we looking for next year? I'm just looking for, what's the goals?
So, okay.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So some of the big ones that we are looking at is, one, the clock in the tower. We either are going to have to spend $30,000 to $40,000 to fix what's up there, or we could spend $30,000 and change all the internal workings out to a less maintenance extensive clock system. So nothing will change from the outside. The clock will look the same, but we're looking into the most efficient way to maintain that clock over time. So that's a big project. We are looking at making improvements down into the basement to, one, we are looking at splitting the 2 server systems, one on the police side, one on the borough side, and moving the borough one over to our side of the building. Eventually, we're going to have to budget for new servers. But we're looking at the cost of cleaning up that server room, possibly using the space we have down in the basement, that climate controlled room where we keep all the maps. We can put a small server rack in there and improve our ability to maintain the servers, and then keep the police one separate as a separate system for security reasons. We're looking at buying some shelving for the basement down there to improve our storage systems down there and improve the way that we track and keep all of our stuff. We're looking at getting scanners so that we can go full force into a document management program that will reduce our dependency on paper, everything. And Sharon, to your point, once we get things scanned in, it makes it so much easier for us to, first of all, respond to right-to-know requests. Secondly, reduce the number of right-to-know requests, because there's more of that public document stuff that we can just make available to the public and they go search it themselves. So once you get things scanned in, people can go look up these things themselves, and we don't even have to be involved anymore. We can point people to where those documents are. Communities that have done that have greatly reduced the number of right-to-know requests and questions and the concern of citizens to see all these things that are public documents. You don't have to come in and ask and risk paying for a right-to-know request. You just go look up yourself. I think that's going to help us a whole lot. Improving our efficiency and the software you guys have approved for us to purchase this year, the permit manager is going to help. All that information is going to be scanned in, it's going to be saved into a system. We'll have better tracking, we'll have better enforcement out in the field. So all of these things are improvements, and some of these are going to be reflected in the cost for next year for our borough costs. Oh, and the back door down here. I can't tell you how many times we've had people come in and come to a meeting and go out the back way. Like, I'll take people to go to the market house and they smack their face in the door because they don't know that you have to hold the button in and when you push it. And so we are actually looking into that right now to see what we can do to improve that, because in an emergency and people have to get down that door and down that stairwell and exit the building that way, and the first few people don't know to hit the button, that could be a safety issue. So we're looking at getting that replaced.
Regarding the clock, did you consider talking to the School of Horology or National Watch and Clock Museum? Maybe letting them take a look at it, use their network, give them a plaque or something that says clock maintained by National Watch.
So we reached out to them. The
Association.
school hasn't been in place for 2 years now.
Oh, for
Isn't
real?
Dr. Larry Laird part of the clock? Here at the,
We don't have a contract with him. He has over the years helped maintain it, yes. So we're looking at all options to see which is the most efficient one. And as soon as we get a good representation of all the different costs, you will see soon we have to rent a high lift, an 80-foot lift, for the one gentleman to go up there and take some measurements to give us a final cost on what it'd be like, what it would cost to switch all the mechanics out. So we'll get that final price together and get all that information together, and then I bring it to you, because it's the balance of maintaining a good clock. The one we have up there is very expensive to maintain, and is a bit of a dinosaur, if you will, in terms of even antique clocks. It's not the most efficient one that's out there. So you guys will have to decide. I mean, we'll get as much information as we can together to make that decision, but that is going to be a cost. It's going to be $30,000 to $40,000 either way next year for us to either replace the guts or fix what's there. So that's a big chunk of that number right there.
Thank you, I was wondering what the vision was for.
Should have fund drive.
What?
Should have fund drive. Save the
Well,
clock.
and I'll say this too,
Save time.
We're
Save time
budgeting-
with the fund drive.
we're budgeting a little money to make little minor improvements around the building as well. I look at this room and we'd like to have all of our space where the public comes in, the lobby, you know, just making little minor changes as we can as we go along to make it look nice, to improve the image of what we do here. Not big dollars. One thing we've talked about over time is, you know, having one TV in this room located on the side wall makes it very difficult when we're giving presentations. You know, maybe increasing the number of TVs in here so the public can see, you guys can see, and eventually tie that video image into the live stream so that when we want to switch over, we can switch over to what's on the TV so that people at home can see it as well. Those are all things that we're looking at to improve the quality of experience here in this room as well.
Can the borough get involved in GoFundMe's? GoFundMe drives? I'm serious.
I don't-
mean, I'm serious thinking,
I-
why not have a GoFundMe drive for the clock? I mean, that could go national.
You could
Why not?
put a big thermometer out there, big clock. Arms have to go around until we hit our
People
budget.
donate it for sillier things in a clock.
Save the clock. Back to the future.
Save the clock.
Right.
That's it.
Could the borough receive funds that way?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could. I wouldn't be opposed to that. The one other thing that's in that list as well, safety, gutters and downspouts.
Oh, yeah.
Sadie Lane out here is a virtual ice rink. So we have the officers are running through it,
Thank you.
staff, absolutely. And then with the market house opening as well, potential slip and falls, pretty big problem. So if anyone wants to see any of that, we can break that list out. We can give you the project sheet, of course, kind of break into that line item a little bit more. Please just let me know. Are there any other questions with Bond Capital Fund 30? All right, so the next and last fund would be, should be the next page, Liquid Fuels Fund, Fund 035, proposal number 2. Here too, it's just a table of contents, it's one page, the chart of accounts. Here as well, Not a lot of change from prior years. This is proposal number 2 once again. So in number 1, we did highlight how we have moved the street lighting and the traffic lighting electrical expenses to liquid fuels fund, which is quite a substantial amount. It is helping out the general fund immensely. Also here, the biggest change going into proposal number 2 would be Mill Street improvements, which along with the electrical, and also the street name signage replacement project, we have added into liquid fuels in proposal number 2. So we actually transfer from fund balance for liquid fuels. Now we're at $265,088. Not a lot to, well, let me go over the projects listed: Mill Street improvements, traffic control devices, street name signage updates, improvements, ADA curbs, 2020 street paving projects, non-capital items. Once again, we have the electrical costs, snow and ice removal, and highway supplies and materials, which again has nothing to do for the expenditures 2021, those not projects. Does anybody have any questions with the liquid fuels fund?
Have you seen maybe it would be for next year, a dip in liquid fuels because people aren't driving as much, or?
If you look at, so we do have those numbers, and we definitely did see a reduction. 2020, we got $275,802. 2021, 10% decrease. We're going to get $248,982. So there definitely was a
Third one down
decrease.
under revenue. You'll see that line item.
Oh, right.
It's that first blue, light blue, possibly purple, depending on the printer. It did go down 10%.
But not as bad as we had worried about.
Not that 30% that everyone was kicking around, thankfully. Across the board, everyone was saying 30%. We haven't seen that. That's a very good thing. Okay, nobody has any questions on liquid fuels? Okay. That will wrap it up for the proposals. Once again, we'll circle around the general fund, the positional increases. Short of unforeseen circumstances or something from council or possibly staff, these proposals will not change for these 3 funds. So again, you'll see these, whether we do it in 2 weeks, all 4 budgets we propose to you, and this is what it is, we'll lock it in, or if we do it that first meeting in December, the budget meeting in December. These 3 funds, again, I do not intend as of now changing anything. You're not going to see another proposal for them. The only thing you're going to see next is the capital fund, Fund 18, coming to you guys, proposal number 1. And that we're still trying to wrap up and get all the numbers together. Okay? Does anybody have any other questions? Anyone else? Yes.
When are the people coming, or aren't they coming this year to the nonprofits to ask for money?
So, my opinion is, I feel uncomfortable asking groups to come in just to say no to them. So, unless there are any significant changes in the groups that we give to, I don't want to invite a bunch of groups in and have us just say no to them, or have them come in and say, I'm sorry, we can't because we're not even allowed to give to you. Okay. So I haven't scheduled them all to come in. If you'd like me to, we can.
No, I
just had no plan on bringing it in right now. We'll be talking to the different groups just to ensure that the need hasn't changed. The only change I'm sure we're going to see is that everyone has more needs right now. But there's no plan to greatly increase or change any of the things that we give to the few number of groups that we do give to.
Thanks, I just know in the past we did.
Right, and I know that's not an uncommon thing, but the list of groups that we can actually give to is so tight, and we give to the ones now that we can.
Okay.
I know the one that almost always comes in is the library, and if you want to have them come in and talk, and if we see a need to increase our funding to them, we can.
I think we're giving them enough.
We have them in at 5.
So if anyone has a desire to do that, we can schedule those, but I just haven't done it yet. I just don't see a need this year to do that.
Okay.
Kyle, on the
Yes.
PDF file that you sent me, any reason why page 17 with Borough Manager, you, and codes raises or twice on one file.
We wanted you to approve it twice.
Well, that's
It's
what
it's
I
a
wanted.
subtle way to get,
It's on page, it's on
I
24
don't want
and
you to forget.
37 on.
It was,
hope you didn't catch that.
How many hints do you have to send?
apparently two's enough. So internally, when I sent out the email, I give the 3 packets, and they also give the 11 by 17 format, so they kind of all wound up into one packet, so getting the information twice for anything isn't a bad thing, but that's why.
I was looking to see if there was any more, but I didn't.
No, it's just got, there's some chart accounts in there twice. Yeah, you passed. Yeah.
Thank you.
But anyways,
Just for that, you wait in January.
Pat Howard.
So, Borough Council comments. Let's go around the horn. Nothing?
Good job.
Nothing, all right. Again, I just want to say, well done to Parks and Rec, because that was awesome, having a Halloween party.
That was very good. Well done.
It was.
So, the next thing we're having is gingerbread.
I know, I've already planned mine.
There you go. And I just want to mention that entry forms are now on the Borough Facebook page.
Oh,
Yes.
so, in case anyone didn't hear, there are entry forms for the gingerbread house display on the Borough website and the Borough Facebook page.
Yep.
Mr. Downer.
Thank you, Chris. Frank Delpit, 1001 Amarillo Pike. How much do we get in lieu of taxes, and where does it come from?
very good question.
I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, I'm going to have, tell you what, I can put that, we're getting the October packet out next week. I can make that a part of that packet if you'd like. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you who's giving what and when. From what I've seen, it's primarily the retirement homes, and the amount that they give seems to vary year by year. But if you'd like, I can put a little recap together over the last 3-4 years and put it with the finance packet if you'd like. I just can't sit here, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, unfortunately.
It's a good idea, I think.
Yeah, now this year, I can tell you, I redid the format for the letter. I can't really speak to what they did in years prior to me coming on. But now I get a list of all the exempt properties. And that includes veterans and things like that. So obviously I take those out. The true not-for-profit organizations, we're gonna mail it out. We're gonna have a list. It's gonna be part of the reporting next year, who's giving what, when. I mean, more, not to call out those that didn't, but to recognize those that did. Because obviously it's a huge part of the, you know, if we could include all those in the assessed value, it'd be much higher than it is now. So I think it's only right to report on that and give them credit for those that do give to us. We don't break it out, I think, well enough right now. That's something we could do too. We could do another line item. But let me do that next week,
Okay,
the week after. When the reporting comes out for October, I'll do a little summary sheet.
I appreciate that,
Yeah.
and it would also,
Wait a minute.
I thought I saw it in there.
We have, I knew we had the line item.
387002.
Yes.
Yeah.
So far this year, we've received 11,000.
I thought I seen 12, but I wasn't going to say it.
That's our budget.
It was, we actually got 11 and 18. We actually received 13,019. So far, 2020, we received 12. So that's, it's kind of a hit and miss. So that too, again, I'll break it out next.
Would
next
it
report.
be possible for you or whoever in the finance to get the valuation of these tax exempt properties?
Yes, yeah, that is on the report we get.
You would do that with
Absolutely, yeah. So what all shows the not-for-profit? Again, the individual veterans, their tag, I'll take those off. Not that that's, I'm not really sure where that falls as far as, NPI. But that's part of the information I get from the county. It's the parcel number, the address, the owner, the assessed value. I think that's about it. So yeah, we can put that whole report together.
Okay. Last question, it doesn't pertain to finance, but what is the purpose of the monitor in the front window?
Oh, the TV? It's just another way to communicate with the general public. We are trying to just loop general information, like highlights of what's on the webpage, et cetera, out there.
I come in today to pick up some paperwork, and I'd have to stand there inside. I can't be driving by, sitting at the red light. If it was long, I'm sitting at the red light, I could have a reason to watch it. I'm just wondering, I'd have to stand there and wait for item to come up. It just didn't jive to me. I couldn't figure, that was a...
It's like an electronic bulletin board.
Right.
Yeah, but you got to stand there to watch it.
Yeah, get a ticker.
Yeah. That's the purpose. I mean, it's a preference thing. Some people love it. They walk by, they'll stop for a couple seconds, look at a few pictures and move on. During emergencies, we can post emergency notifications up there quickly for people to know. It's just another communication tool. The police side have one too. They run the police video there constantly from there. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks, Frank.
All right. Announcement of next meeting at 6:30 on November 10th, 2020. Council will hold an information session to receive information from the borough manager and the solicitor prior to the regularly scheduled meeting at 7 p.m. Could I have a motion to adjourn? And a second. I have a motion by Councilperson Kaufman, a second by Councilperson Regard to adjourn the meeting at 9:02 p.m. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? And that's a wrap. We're adjourned.
I know, we could have been out of here at 7:30.